Hi, this is Ed Rushman again for Whitestone Journal. Our website's whitestonejournal.com. If you get a chance to go there, great. There's also Twitter, Whitestone Journal, which is actually, I think, Whitestone J, because they have a limit on the length of the name. Anyway, talking about parenting and about the worries that we have for young people starting out in the world. How can we prepare them to succeed? Is it even ethical to try and give our children an edge over other children? Let's talk about that a little bit. You know, right now it looks to me sometimes like we're all gathered around a body of water, a small body of water, a pond or a pool of water that's shrinking day by day. The gap between the rich and the poor is getting more. The opportunities for our young people seem to be less. They can go out, even go to college, even get a good degree, and it's still hard to find a job. What can we do about this? What can we do to give our children an edge? And I think there's a few things we can do. One of them is that for us, the parents, and this is before you even have children, learn as much as possible. Get all the education possible. And that doesn't mean just degrees and school and conventional things. Get smarter. Because it's very, very hard to give, as the old Latin proverb says, one can't give what one hasn't got. If we have a real love of learning, and it can't be to survive, although certainly that is a motivating reason, but if we don't have a real appreciation for learning, it's very hard to get our children to learn. If we tell a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, you need to learn so that you can get a good job someday, that's probably not the best thing. It isn't really that motivating for that child. They're too far away from that. But if you can get them excited about learning and have them realize that it's actually fun to know things. It's fun to know things for a couple of reasons. Sadly, pride is one of them. It feels good to know more. It's sadly to know more than others. But it feels good to know a lot, to be able to demonstrate knowledge, to be useful to other people, which is not necessarily pride. It's a nice thing to be the person in the room that knows. Oh, there goes the sun. Okay. Well, this isn't very good. All right. Well, forget about this. Sorry about that. All right. So, learning more, having a love of learning. For parents, if the parents are lifetime learners, I know that's a cliche, but if we're lifetime learners, if we're constantly learning new things, if we're excited about it, and we're sharing that with our children, then the children will pick up on that, and they may inherit that tendency to keep learning. It's a good thing. What about the ethical problem? There's the story about the two hikers that are out, and while they're sitting around relaxing, taking a break, a bear comes roaring out of the woods. And this bear, as it's coming toward them, the one hiker calmly proceeds to put on their shoes. And the other hiker says, "What are you doing? You can't outrun a bear." And he says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I only have to outrun you." Ethically, this is a problem. It'd be great to save each other and everything else, but ultimately, we're responsible for our children. And we have to do what we can help. And sadly, that means putting them in the best possible competitive position. And somebody can say, well, that's not ethical. We shouldn't try and make them in a better position than others, then somebody else is going to lose. But really, to give the children the best education possible, that doesn't always mean a particular college or anything, but in what we do as the primary educators of our children, and that's been forgotten. We are the primary educators of our children. School, for me, was always supplemental compared to what I was teaching my children. The school taught them what I didn't have time to teach, and the things, frankly, that were somewhat boring. The basics of math. Most of the time, my children learned that at school. What to do with it is something that I helped them with. But the idea is to lost my train of thought. This thing was rattling up here. It was driving me crazy. And I'm having a harder time managing the sun today, it seems. The fact is that we're responsible for doing the very best for our children that we can. If we do that, we can't help but put them in a better position compared to the general population. The number of children that are neglected by their parents, that are abused, that are not loved as they need to be, that are even molested, the number is huge. It isn't that it's the majority, although sometimes I wonder with the stories I hear. But it's a lot. It's more than is acceptable, and it's damaging children. Most children really don't grow up with the love that they should get. That's right off the bat. I mean, parents will buy them things, feed them, clothe them, do things like that. But there's no substitute for real love and for selfless love. If you're looking to get something in return for the love you give children, you're going to be very disappointed. Children don't really know how to love until they're arguably in their 20s. Up until that point, there's a couple of patterns that they fall into. They're either trying to please you so they get what they want. They're trying to please you so that they don't get punished, so that they can avoid some unpleasantness. Or they're doing it just to feel good about themselves. They're just trying to earn your love. And we have to constantly teach them that it isn't about earning it. They already have it. And we do that through our actions and our words. We have to be so careful what we say and do. Things that sound innocent are not necessarily all that innocent. When my son, when he was small, and did something really well, and if I said, "Oh, good boy," that's telling him I'm making a value judgment on him. If I say "good job," I'm saying that the thing he did was good. And that sounds like it's splitting hairs, but it's not. If you say "good boy," "good girl," you're telling them that they have pleased you as a person. You've judged them. But if you say that their actions are good or bad, then you're saying it's the actions, it's not you. And if it's a good thing, you say, well, why wouldn't you want them to feel good about themselves? But then they're looking to you for approval and for validation instead of simply finding out what's a good thing to do and what's not. I hope this is making some sense. Anyway, in preparing children and teaching them to learn and all that, that's really wonderful, but that's not enough. Teaching them that you love them, giving them that love, making them secure makes it possible for them to take risks. They know that they can take a risk. They're not going to think about this consciously, but they know that they can take a risk. They can try something, and you're not going to be mean over it if they made the wrong choice. You're going to use it as a teaching opportunity, which is exactly what it was to them. When a child tries something, good or bad, they are learning. They're doing an experiment to find out what works. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they may make the wrong choice. Sorry. But we have to enter into that spirit with them, that we are discovering together what works and what doesn't work, and ask questions rather than condemn or make statements right away. I think I've done this reasonably well. I don't know. My children can judge that, and maybe they'll comment and say one way or the other. It's important to explain why we do and say the things we say and do. If we tell them not to do something, we have to explain why, or why they shouldn't do it. If we tell them they should do something, explain why it's important. Lastly, one of the best skills we can give children is the ability to fully take responsibility for their lives, to fully take responsibility for their actions. And we think of that as, oh, they did something bad and we want them to take responsibility. But it's more that if they want something, that they take responsibility for going after it. Whether it's good or bad, it's better for them to take responsibility for it. And then if it's bad and they discover it's bad, they will automatically take responsibility for what they did wrong and learn from it and hopefully do better in the future. But taking responsibility is a rare thing right now. In work, in politics, in life in general, people are not taking responsibility. They act like everything's a random event, or that it's nature versus them. And nature isn't always friendly, but we have a lot more control than sometimes we want to admit. If a child doesn't learn to take responsibility, they will never have a sense of control. That's the positive side of taking responsibility. It gives us the sense that we have some control over our life. Goodness knows, we can't always get control over whether we get the flu. Could wash our hands more often. We could avoid getting too close to somebody when they have it, I suppose. We have a little bit of control there. We have very little control over some of the major illnesses and things like that happen. A child loses their hearing, a child loses their sight. A lot of the time, there's nothing they can do about that. But there's plenty that we can control. And we can always control our attitude toward what happens. When random things happen, good or bad, even the good things, if we take the good things that happen, we can be complacent about it, or we can see it as an opportunity and we can drive ourselves to make the most of that opportunity. So instead of just thinking of taking responsibility in a negative way, think of it as taking control and teach the children they can do it. I remember when my children were very young and they get upset over something and start to have a tantrum or start to really get out of control, and I would say, get control of yourself, and in a calm way, not yelling at them, although I'm not saying that I'm perfect that way. But it was a matter of saying, you can control yourself. You don't have to lose it right now. You don't have to go out of control. I will give you time. Just pull yourself together and do that. As an adult, that would be really annoying. But for a child, it's telling them you have control over your life. These feelings that you have are very strong. They're overwhelming, but you can master them. It's really making our children superheroes. There's a lot of power a person has over their life. And if there was one thing I could teach a child, it's to have control of their life. Even if they didn't learn everything, if they don't know all the different science things and history facts and everything else, if they do know that they have responsibility for their life, maybe they'll figure out that they need to know things. Anyway, those are some thoughts on parenting, giving our children skills and knowledge and love that helps them to succeed. It's really important. And if we don't do that, they're at a disadvantage when they go out into the world. And as much as I'm sorry for everyone else, I want my children to win. Partly because if our children are successful, if they carry good values and strengths out into the marketplace, they have the chance to pass that on to others, not just their own children, but to the people around them. They can be a really, really good example and maybe even make other people question how they should raise children and want to do it more that way. Certainly the things that my mother did right, I've tried to repeat. I've come up with my own things, I guess, that I saw, frankly, by looking at the way that God raises children, the way He raises all of us. The patience and the love and the compassion, the forgiveness, the mercy. But also the drive. And maybe we can pass these things on. Maybe we can make a better world if we do it one child at a time. Confucius said that if there's peace in the family, there's peace in the village, and on up it goes. If we want peace in the world, we better figure out a way to raise our children better, because we sure haven't been cutting it so far. Ed Rushman, Whitestone Journal. Leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up or down.